Hello, this is Sarah Murray, one of the dietitians with the Villages Health. Today we'll be presenting on healthy holiday eating, especially focusing on the holidays in 2020, which are a kind of special time with COVID and not as many people gathering as usual, perhaps. So this first slide that we have here is talking about what we will go over today. We're going to talk about different holiday patterns and traditions, reviewing mindful eating and healthy eating, especially important during the holidays, examining strategies to stay on track during the holidays, and common holiday indulgence and some ways that we can make modifications. I'll give you some examples today, but also feel free to get a little bit creative in your kitchen as well. So the holiday season is typically known to start in late November around Thanksgiving. However, a lot of us experience Halloween as being the start of the holiday season. That's when we start to have some of those more indulgent treats out. So it's 6 weeks from late November to early January, but that time can be even longer. And 6 weeks is an awfully long time for you to just give way to things and say, all right, well, it's the holiday season. I'll get back on track in the new year. So do consider that the holiday season can be quite a lengthy amount of time. Trying to keep your health in mind for 6 weeks is 6 weeks is very important. Holiday traditions do differ from person to person and family to family and from time to time too. So for some, it's a celebration. For some, it's a more difficult time of the year. And also right now, it can be even more difficult for people perhaps not having their family to be able to gather quite as much. So do keep that in mind. Keep in mind that the whole point of the holiday season is not necessarily about food, even though the food does tend to be more of our gathering point. And holiday consumption also tends to be higher around this time of the year as well. Something really important to keep in mind just for overall health, mental health, everything like that. More indulgent appetizers, more stick-to-your-bone type meals, desserts and beverages are all typically consumed around this time. So more of those comfort foods. So it can be important to think about what are your goals and is this going to help you to get closer to your goals or is it going to have more barriers in the way? So keep in mind the point of the holidays is really more to celebrate the season or family traditions. So it doesn't mean that you can't eat healthy and have those as well. Keep in mind what you want out of the holiday season and what your goals are past the holiday season. So staying on track is something really important. Having a plan to stay on track is even more important than having just a goal in general. How are you actually going to be able to implement that? Being able to evaluate your progress towards your goals on a regular basis, maybe checking in with yourself every week or so, and being realistic with your goals as well. So if you do have these times where you tend to go a little bit overboard or whatever it might be that gets in your way, be realistic and try to set up little tangible goals for yourself. One thing that we always like to go back to, since this has been developed, is MyPlate. If you aren't familiar, MyPlate replaced the food pyramid, and it's a little bit more feasible, a little bit more tangible of a food pyramid replacement. Basically telling us that half of our plate should be fruits and or vegetables, a quarter of it being protein, and a quarter of it being your grains or some kind of starch. Preferably our grains, we would be getting at least 50% of that from whole grains, or that could be something like a whole food, like a potato or corn or something. Protein, preferably that would be a leaner protein, so think your chicken breast, turkey breast, fish, anything from the loin is considered a lean protein. And then we also want to make sure that you've got the dairy component in there for the calcium and vitamin D benefits, especially if you may be in a darker climate or a more northern climate, you might not be getting that vitamin D that we need so much to be able to absorb that calcium appropriately. So being sure you're getting adequate vitamins, that dairy is a great source of that. Our dairy substitutes like your almond milk or soy milk or oat milk are oftentimes fortified with calcium and vitamin D, so they are perfectly fine replacements. It doesn't need to be in the form of milk either. It can be in the form of cheese or yogurt or any kind of dairy product that you might be using. So half of that plate being fruits and or vegetables, we can translate that to the dinner plate of whatever meal it might be. You might be having very easily. So if it's something like your Thanksgiving dinner, how can we cut your plate in half just to visualize it? Having half of it being your green beans, maybe having a salad on the plate or on the side, a quarter of it being your lean protein, and a quarter of it being your starch. In this example here we have on the bottom right, we've got some sweet potato and some stuffing in that upper left-hand corner, and then we've got some turkey in the bottom left-hand corner. So we want to choose the foods that are lower in saturated fats. That would be like our lean turkey. We want the foods that are lower in trans fats. Thankfully, that's much easier to avoid nowadays. It has become out of circulation by the FDA in our food products, which is good. We want to avoid those added sugars, going more for the natural sugars, and avoiding excess salt as well for most of us. Most Americans are eating much more than the recommended daily allowance for sodium. The recommended daily allowance for someone who is not on a low sodium diet at all is considered around 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. However, a typical American is eating about 3,600 milligrams of sodium a day, so much more than the standard recommended amount, even if you're not on a low sodium diet. It's also important to try to take the time to eat mindfully. Oftentimes, when we're around the holiday season, we might be really distracted while we're eating because we're chatting with family or friends, or maybe there's something else going on that's really distracting us, like opening presents or something. So trying to go back to mindful eating, bringing your full attention to your food and your body, your fullness scale, and really trying to be mindful and in the moment when you're actually eating. This involves the taste, the smell, your thoughts, your feelings, your physical sensations that might arise while you're eating. You can do this at any time. It doesn't need to be with your holiday meal. It doesn't need to be with a specific meal. It can be at any time of the day, snacks, whatever it might be. But studies actually show that this does help people to be more aware of their bodily cues. It helps to increase satisfaction. It helps to get people closer to their goals when it comes to their body, help them to feel more confident in their body. And you know, it can also help with weight reduction or decreased calorie consumption if someone is overeating before starting mindful eating. So some strategies that can help you to eat more mindfully. You can try eating on a smaller plate. You can try eating on a napkin instead if you're eating hors d'oeuvres or something. You can try to place your less nutritious or more tempting foods to you further away. That way you have a little bit more of a barrier between you and that food. Maybe you're going to eat it less mindfully. It might help to eat slower, definitely helps to eat slower, I mean. It can take about 20 to 30 minutes for your fullness cues to go from your stomach to your brain. So you want to give your body enough time to register that fullness cue, as opposed to eating within 10 minutes, not actually receiving that cue until after the fact, and then getting into that food coma type state. So slowing down with your meals, aim for about 30 minutes. If you want to, it can even be helpful to set a timer and see how quickly you might be eating your meals already, and see where you might be gauged on this scale right now, and try to work closer and closer towards that 30-minute goal. Keep in mind, any progress is progress. So oftentimes people eat a lot faster than 20 to 30 minutes. So if you can increase yours from 10 minutes to 12 minutes, that is progress. Minimize distractions. This can be a really difficult one. So if you're used to eating with the TV on, let's try to turn the TV off. If it means turning down the Christmas music to maybe a more mellow tone, that might be decreasing the distractions. Whatever it might be in your specific case, however you eat your meals, to really sit and be mindful of your eating and what you're eating in your body at that moment. Taking time to savor the flavor of your food kind of goes back to being aware of the taste and the smells, the visualization of your food. What does it look like? Does it look appealing? But really taking your time with it, practicing gratitude. This one can be one that's very overlooked as well. But oftentimes when we have instances of overeating, we do tend to get out of the body a lot more. So we get into our heads a little bit more and out of our body. Taking the time to practice the gratitude can help us to re-engage, slow down that nervous system, and really help us to be aware and in our body a little bit more. So taking your time for your meals can allow you to do that. Eating on smaller plates, being more aware. This one's a tough one, and it definitely is a practice. You're not going to eat mindfully 100% of the time, but it is something really helpful. And we do actually have a presentation just on mindful eating if you do want to catch that one as well. So some tips to stay on track with the holiday season. Keeping a journal. It can help you to just be aware of what you're doing, whether you're tracking food, exercise, weight, whatever tangible tracking system that you might want to go for. Anything would be helpful. Even just jotting down the foods that you're eating can help you to just be more aware of what you're eating. And it can help you to kind of slow down and think about, oh, I did just eat a couple of hours ago. Why am I reaching for this food right now? Am I physically hungry, or is there something else going on? There's plenty of new technology that we can use as well if you're open to it. There's plenty of apps on your phone, or if you want to keep it simple, pen and paper works just fine. In terms of apps, I really like MyFitnessPal. Some people like Lose It. There's a number of different tracker apps that you can track for using your phone or the computer, or if you want to do old school, pen and paper works just fine. Also try to plan in your exercise. So think about what you have the day ahead of you, the week ahead of you. What does that look like? How are you going to be able to work in movement or some kind of physical activity? Whether that's just going on a stroll with your family outside, or playing some pickleball, or what is it that you can work in that would be realistic for you. But try to plan it in. That way you've got that one added barrier broken down. So try not to say that you're going to wait until the new year. Think about how you can set yourself up for the new year, and maybe moving a little bit more now, or avoiding those instances of overeating, whatever it might be for you. So making your healthy eating a priority now will help you for the future. Making it more of a lifestyle can be helpful too. So, if you tell yourself, I am a runner, and then you can help yourself to become a runner, as opposed to saying, oh, I ran that one time. Whatever it might be for you, make it a lifestyle. Planning ahead not only for your exercise, but also planning ahead for all of the events that you might be going to. Try to avoid going to holiday gatherings hungry, or these big meals hungry. If you're going in hungry, your body is going to be sending out all of these hunger cues while you're in front of the food, and it can cause you to overeat, eat less mindfully. It can be a lot more difficult. Definitely try to eat at breakfast the day of. If it's Thanksgiving, for instance, avoid saying, oh, I'll just wait until that Thanksgiving dinner time, and I won't eat anything all day. So eating a protein-rich breakfast at the big day can help to curb your appetite all day long. And this applies for any day. Trying to have some kind of protein in the morning can help with your appetite and your bodily chemical production. So like I was saying, just avoid waiting too long, listen to your hunger cues throughout the day, being mindful of your body. This kind of goes back to that mindful eating. Try something new to bring. So if you always bring a potato casserole, or like a sweet potato casserole, how can you make little modifications to this recipe? Is it something that you're willing to make modifications over? If you're not willing to make modifications, maybe we can find a different recipe that you would be willing to modify. But don't be afraid to experiment. The worst thing that'll happen is it doesn't turn out good, but we definitely learned something from that experience in that way. So there's really nothing wrong with experimenting. And if you do find a recipe that you like, try to share it with others and try to get others' ideas. There's a whole community out there of people who are trying to eat healthy. So how can we make some recipe modifications, or how can we get more ideas in this way? Plan for your whole week. Know when your holiday gatherings or parties might be. Obviously, we're trying to do things safely, so try to practice those safety guidelines with COVID when you're gathering with others. But try to plan ahead as much as possible and try to think about what your week ahead might actually look like. So when you're thinking about your appetizers, it can be helpful, instead of going for a big plate or even a small plate, to eat your appetizers on a napkin. That way you have a smaller portion that you can actually have, and it can kind of force you to be a little bit more mindful, because instead of having that food on a plate, you actually have it in your hand on a napkin. So this can be better in that way, in that you're being more mindful of your portions. But it can also help you to avoid maybe eating the more calorie-dense foods in that way as well. Try to wait until all the food is out before making your selection. If you've got a big lineup of food, try to do a lap first. You don't want to be eating an apple pie and then your favorite pecan pie walks in the door, and now you need to make room for the pecan pie or whatever it might be for you. But do try to wait, check out the selection before picking out what you're going to have. Keep your healthy food in sight. So trying to have that food on your plate. Try to keep your plate, like I was saying, to that half plate being fruits and or vegetables, and really try to keep that food at the forefront. The more indulgent food is absolutely not off limits. The holidays are an isolated event after all, but try to keep that healthy food in reach. Food pushers can also be a bit of a concern during the holiday season. You might have someone who, I think we all know the food pusher, the person that's trying to force you to eat a little bit more than you actually feel comfortable with. Try to come up with these excuses or these things that you can say to the food pushers in your life of how you can actually listen to your body and serve your body as opposed to serving someone else. That thanks but no thanks is always a good one, and then maybe having a topic changer afterward. Alcohol, like I was saying, alcohol consumption does go up during the holidays, especially this year when alcohol consumption is already a bit higher than it has been in previous years. So try to keep that alcohol intake to a minimum. The recommendation for women is no more than 1 alcoholic beverage in any given day, and for men, no more than 2 in any given day. And those days do not roll over. You can't save all of your alcohol for Christmas or for Thanksgiving. Try to keep it to no more than 1 or 2 in any given day, depending on your gender. But also keep in mind that some of those more higher calorie alcoholic beverages tend to occur during the holidays too. These cocktails tend to be quite indulgent. If you think about something like eggnog, that's very high in calories. Trying to keep in mind that you do want to stay hydrated throughout this time too, and alcohol is not a hydrating beverage. So making sure you are quenching your thirst with maybe water, ideally, but maybe even making yourself something like a mocktail, or even something like a seltzer water, something that's not that doesn't contain as many calories, that can help to quench your thirst actually. So again, going back to being mindful of your body, what do you actually need at that moment? Do you need some water, or do you need an alcoholic beverage? So maybe trying to alternate between these high and low calorie beverages. Also to mention that alcohol does tend to lower your inhibitions. So it might cause you to forget what your goals are, or reach for those more tempting things as they might be out on the table. So try to keep that in mind too. It definitely does impact that, the inhibitions. Staying active, again, trying to plan for it, trying to plan for your exercises. It can help you to make sure that you're working it in, prioritizing it. It can help you to forget about it, help you to avoid forgetting about it, or getting overly busy. You can cause you to overplan your schedule, and now you don't even have time to actually exercise. So prioritizing it. And even if it means trying to increase the exercise too. So say you do end up eating quite a bit at Thanksgiving, maybe we can go on a quick walk after that Thanksgiving dinner. It can help with the digestion process. which can be much more beneficial. Arranging a fun and food-free activity. So if you do have family in town, again, keeping in mind that family and the holidays are about connecting with others. So trying to find a food-free activity that you can do with others, whether it's going on a walk or whatever it might look like for your loved ones. So now we're going to be doing a little bit of a comparison between different foods. So on the left-hand side here, you've got 3.5 ounces of white turkey without the skin, 3.5 ounces of some smoked ham, a cup of plain rice, a small baked potato with a teaspoon of margarine, a cup of cooked carrots, and a slice of French bread. Still a substantial meal. On the right here, you have 3.5 ounces of dark turkey with the skin, 3.5 ounces of duck with the skin, a cup of plain stuffing, a cup of mashed potatoes with gravy, and 3.5 ounces of candied yams and a piece of cornbread. The calorie difference here is quite substantial. So 707 calories versus twice the amount, 1,439 calories. You can see how just little swaps even in between can help you to decrease the calories of that meal significantly. Some beverage ideas, so thinking about your light eggnog versus a regular eggnog. So 4 ounces of skim milk and 4 ounces of eggnog, so diluting that eggnog with some fat-free milk versus 8 ounces of full eggnog. You're decreasing the calories significantly, so 143 calories to 225 calories. But look at the difference in saturated fat as well, and largely that's going to be from saturated fat. From 5.5 grams of fat to 11 grams of fat, you're essentially cutting that in half. And like I was saying, that's largely from saturated fats, which are the ones that do more damage to our cardiovascular system. And you just made room for 2 coconut orange star cookies. There's your cookie. Some appetizer options. So this skinny spinach and artichoke dip versus your prepackaged Knorr spinach and artichoke dip. I'm sorry, that's supposed to be 71 calories there and 5 grams of fat versus 161 calories and 16 grams of fat. So I have that recipe right there, but it's from Happy Healthy Mama, their skinny spinach artichoke dip. And again, that's not supposed to be 7 calories, so please don't get that mixed up. So you save quite a bit of calories there and a significant amount of fat, 11 grams of fat saved there. So you've got an extra room for 3 ounces of turkey breast, and you still get all of that fat saved from going for that lean turkey breast. And there's your turkey breast. So going for the skinless white meat versus the skin-on dark meat saves you, again, a significant amount of calories and all of that saturated fat, 3 grams of saturated fat there. So you're going from 3 grams of saturated fat to no grams of saturated fat. So you just saved yourself, you just gave yourself room for 4 ounces of turkey gravy that you can use on your turkey or your potatoes. So even if you think that white meat is drier, you've got plenty of room for some gravy on top. There's your gravy. So this one is steamed green beans versus a green bean casserole. There's a huge difference here. So even though you are eating your greens with the casserole version, you're also eating an extra 100 calories and 8 grams of fat there versus your steamed green beans. So if you can tolerate the green beans versus a green bean casserole, a much better swap, and you just saved yourself a bunch of extra calories and fat if you wanted to make room for a crescent roll. Here's your crescent roll. A baked sweet potato versus a sweet potato casserole. Big difference here. The sweet potato casserole is obviously going to have a lot more added in there. So you've got a ton more calories. You've got 27 grams of sugar versus only 3 grams of sugar. And you still have room if you wanted to even add some sugar on top. Like a teaspoon of sugar there would give you about 100 extra calories and 7 grams of sugar more, but you're still much less than you would be if you had the sweet potato casserole. And you have room for half a piece of pumpkin pie if you'd like. You would still save a significant amount of sugar. A pumpkin pie dip versus an actual pumpkin pie can also save you a lot. So I included a recipe here, a recipe link. It's from Hungry Girl. If you type in there pumpkin pie dip, this will come up. But essentially, you're cutting down your calories. Over half your calories are saved there. You have room to add on an extra piece of apple if you wanted to dip that in your pumpkin pie dip, and that's only extra 60 calories right there. You just made room for a glass of wine if you'd like. And there's your wine to enjoy responsibly. So wrapping up, your holiday favorite items are definitely able to be incorporated. However, you want to keep in mind, is it something that you actually want in that moment, or is it something that you feel more obliged to have because it's the holiday season? Keep in mind, nothing is off limits to you. We can always work in some sort of portion of your favorite foods. But setting your goals, keeping your goals in mind, and having a plan to actually effectively achieve those goals can help you to stay on track and help you to have a healthier new year as well. Don't be afraid to make modifications to your recipes. Try something new. Try to go for the lighter version, whether that's even just going for a skim milk versus a whole milk or whatever it might be. But don't be afraid to modify recipes in your own kitchen. You can kind of use it as your own little laboratory. Keep in mind, we want to keep exercise, movement, physical activity a priority. Keep those muscles activated. You don't want to go into the new year starting from scratch. So stay active, set your goals, have those goals in mind, and try to keep that in mind. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season.